Get back, wait your turn. Only those with papers.
Please, we have our passports. Let us through.
Please, let us on the helicopter.
You open your eyes to a rumble. The floor beneath your boots vibrates with something distant. Thunder? No. It's heavier than weather. You rush to the window and see it. Black smoke curling over Saigon, spiraling into a sky thick with helicopters. It's April 29th, 1975, and you're on the wrong side of history. The city is coming undone. American diplomats are burning documents. Vietnamese families clutch small children, begging strangers in uniform to take them anywhere but here. Above the embassy, a single helicopter hovers like a lifeline. The last lifeline. And someone just said your name for the manifest. What would you do? Would you run for the chopper? Or stay behind with the people you've come to love? Because this isn't just an evacuation. This is the final heartbeat of a war that reshaped the world. And you are in it.
The perimeter has been breached. All personnel proceed immediately to the designated landing zones for extraction. Do not delay.
The war was never just in the jungles. It lived in whispers, in headlines, in the silence between promises. To understand why Saigon is collapsing beneath your feet, you have to rewind. The Vietnam War began as a fight over ideology, capitalism versus communism, democracy versus dictatorship. But for many on the ground, it was about survival. The U.S. entered the war to prevent the spread of communism, invoking the domino theory. If Vietnam fell, so would the rest of Southeast Asia. But 2 decades later, the dominoes looked different. Over 58,000 Americans dead, more than 250,000 South Vietnamese soldiers lost, and millions of Vietnamese civilians caught in the crossfire. By 1973, America was tired. Tired of body bags, tired of the draft, tired of a war that made no sense on television screens in Ohio and California. The Paris Peace Accords were signed that January, officially ending direct U.S. involvement. But it was a fragile peace, more ceasefire than resolution. And then came 1975. The North Vietnamese Army, led by General Van Tien Dung, launched a massive final offensive. It tore through the Central Highlands, capturing city after city. No one expected it to fall this fast. Hue, Da Nang, Nha Trang, gone. Now, in April, Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam, stands like the last candle in a storm. President Nguyen Van Thieu has resigned and fled. Morale has collapsed. The South Vietnamese army, once propped up by billions of US dollars, is disintegrating. In the American embassy, desperate calls go unanswered. Orders change by the hour. People are burning cash in office trash cans to destroy evidence. Operation Frequent Wind, the largest helicopter evacuation in history, has just begun. And you? You're a civilian contractor, or maybe a war correspondent. Maybe you married a Vietnamese woman. Maybe you trained South Vietnamese troops. Who you are doesn't matter. You are now a name on a list, or not. And the list is shrinking. The sky above Saigon isn't just filled with smoke. It's filled with fear and fading chances.
Please take my son. He is an American citizen.
You can hear the chopper before you see it. But by the time it's close enough, there's already 100 others running for the same sound.
April 29th, 1975. The last day. The U.S. Embassy in Saigon becomes the epicenter of desperation. Hundreds of Vietnamese crowd outside the gates. Some wave old photographs, IDs, letters from American friends. Others carry children on their backs. Behind them, gunfire echoes in the city. The North Vietnamese are approaching. You're inside the embassy compound now somehow. Maybe you slipped past the Marine Guards, or maybe you were on the State Department's clearance list. Doesn't matter anymore. Chaos doesn't check credentials. The courtyard is full. Crying, yelling, begging. Everyone looks up. Helicopters thrum above like metal hornets. The noise is deafening, but people cheer when one appears. Every rotor blade feels like a heartbeat. Some climb trees, others scale walls. One man wraps his baby in a blanket and holds him high, hoping someone on the rooftop will see. You're told to move. Now. A Marine shouts, "Rooftop evac only! Go! Go!" You sprint through the embassy hall. Shattered glass, overturned chairs, flickering lights. Documents burn in trash cans. Radios crackle with incomplete orders. And then, stairs. 5 flights. At the top, a metal door. It opens. Wind slaps your face. The rooftop is chaos. A CH-46 Sea Knight helicopter hovers above, rotor wash blasting everyone sideways. A rope ladder descends. A soldier waves. You get 10 seconds, maybe less. There's no line, no order, just a heaving mob of survival. People scream names. Some hold passports, waving them like talismans. Others have nothing but their hands. Someone gets pulled up. Someone else gets pushed back. A gun goes off. You don't know where. A Marine shouts, "We're full, back off!" The bird lifts. Another is already approaching. You don't know how many more are coming. You only know each one might be the last. The embassy rooftop becomes a symbol of betrayal, of bravery, of the impossible logistics of mercy. One Marine later said, "We were picking who lived by the tilt of a rifle barrel." And you? You're still waiting, watching the horizon, praying to hear that familiar thrum again. But the city below is changing. Black smoke rises from Tan Son Nhut Air Base. Fires burn in Cholon district. And everywhere, the same word: hurry.
The moment your feet leave the rooftop, you expect to feel relief. But what hits you instead is silence. The silence of leaving everything behind.
You're in the belly of the CH-46 now, packed shoulder to shoulder, 20, maybe 30 people. The rotors scream overhead, but inside the cabin it feels like a chapel. No one speaks. Someone weeps quietly into their sleeves. Another clutches a photo. Mother, sister, husband. Most carry nothing at all, not even shoes. A U.S. Marine pulls the cargo door shut behind you. The city drops away. Through the open window slats, you see Saigon from above. Not the bustling, wild, unpredictable city it once was, but a city bleeding from every edge. Black columns of smoke curl into the gold-stained sky. The presidential palace, once a symbol of strength, sits still and waiting like a tomb. Roads jammed with bicycles and scooters and barefoot children snake toward nowhere. Someone whispers, "That was my house," pointing down to a street now swallowed by chaos. You can't tell which one. They all blur together from this height. In the distance, explosions. Somewhere near the port. Maybe a fuel depot. Maybe a final act of scorched earth retreat. The details don't matter anymore. You're flying away from your own story. Across from you sits a South Vietnamese officer, still in uniform, medals clinking against his chest. He doesn't look angry. He just looks hollow, like a man watching the death of everything he ever believed in. The chopper banks. Ahead, the South China Sea. A fleet of U.S. Navy ships dot the horizon like gray steel islands. Aircraft carriers, supply ships, floating salvation. Your ticket to elsewhere. Someone else starts praying softly in Vietnamese. And then, as if on cue, a child asks, "Where are we going?" No one answers, because nobody really knows. But everyone in that helicopter understands one thing. The life you knew is over. That world, that city, that family left behind the embassy walls. They belong to a past that has just quite literally disappeared beneath the clouds.
What hits you instead is silence. Move it! Keep moving! Get clear of the landing zone now! This way! Hurry
You've
up!
escaped the fall, but freedom doesn't always feel like arrival.
Keep moving, let's
Sometimes
go.
it
Get
feels
clear
like
of the
being
landing
dropped
zone.
into a new war, one inside your own skin. Your boots hit the steel deck of the USS Hancock with a clang. The sea wind hits you harder than you expect, salty, wet, alive. You squint up at the grey sky. For a moment, you just stand there, blinking, trying to decide if this is still real. Around you, hundreds disembark from choppers in waves. The noise is overwhelming. Rotor blades chopping air, sailors shouting orders, babies crying, someone vomiting over the side. Organized chaos in navy blue. A medic guides you toward a line where refugees are given numbers, food packets, a place to sit. There's no time for questions, just movement, identification, triage. You pass by American soldiers. Some offer water, some look away. You hear murmurs. That's the ambassador's cook. She worked at the embassy for years. He was in the ARVN, a colonel, I think. In one corner of the deck, someone breaks down, sobbing into their hands. Not from pain, but from knowing they made it and still feel lost. And then it hits you. Survival isn't the end of this story, it's the beginning of another one, and you have no map. You look back toward the choppers still lifting off, still landing, toward the dark plume over Saigon, barely visible on the horizon. You wonder how many are still waiting, how many won't make it, how many made different choices. A Vietnamese mother stands next to you, her child asleep on her shoulder. She speaks softly to herself. It was the only way. The carrier begins to turn, southward, away from the coastline. You are now unmistakably at sea. And in that moment, you realize something. You've left your country, your house, your language, your street, your school, your church, everything. But what hurts most is this. You left without saying goodbye. You survived the fall of a nation, but the collapse echoes long after the final chopper lifts off.
Weeks later, you're in a refugee camp in Guam, or perhaps Camp Pendleton, California. You've been given clothes, rations, forms to fill out in a language that once felt like a job skill, but now feels like the only way forward. The world sees you as rescued, but what you feel is suspended, somewhere between loss and survival, between old identity and whatever comes next. At night, you dream in Vietnamese, vivid dreams of alleys, markets, rivers, your mother's cooking, your father's quiet during the evening news. And then you wake up to the sound of foreign traffic, fluorescent lights, a language that feels sharp and cold. Your name is mispronounced, your history forgotten. You are one of the boat people, the evacuees, the Saigon crowd. You carry guilt like a second passport. You remember the ones who didn't make it, the interpreter who missed the chopper because he helped a family get to the gate, the soldier who handed you his spot on the flight. You're younger, you'll last longer. The cousin who said, "I'll wait for the next one." But there was no next one. You find work eventually, maybe as a dishwasher, maybe in an office. You save, you adapt. Your English improves, you raise a family. And one day, your child, born far from the Mekong, asks, "Why don't we talk about Vietnam?" And you pause. Because how do you explain a nation that vanished mid-sentence? How do you translate the taste of silence in a helicopter's downdraft, or the weight of an unspoken goodbye? You look out the window. It's raining. Not the Saigon rain, hot and dense like spilled tea, but a cold American drizzle. You smile at your child and say, We lost everything, and we built again. That's why we speak both languages, because the past isn't gone. It's part of the foundation. You carry on. But the ghosts, they walk beside you, not as burdens, but as reminders that history isn't just what you escape from, it's what you choose to carry forward, and that sometimes survival means becoming the storyteller, so that the next generation doesn't just inherit freedom, they inherit memory.
Hurry! They're leaving! Help us! Get on the helicopter!
What if you were on the last flight out of Saigon? You might have left the city behind, but Saigon never left you.
History books close the chapter with a photograph. A chopper on a rooftop, arms reaching up. But history is not a still frame. It's the blur of motion. The hum of rotor blades. The hands that didn't reach in time. The breath you didn't know you were holding. The voice on the radio saying, "This is Tiger 777. We are lifting off."
That chopper was
For some, April 30th, 1975 marked the end of a war. But for millions, it marked the beginning of exile, identity, reinvention. That final helicopter wasn't just a vehicle, it was a threshold between past and future, between home and memory, between silence and story. And now, decades later, as the world watches new evacuations, new exoduses, new desperate climbs toward uncertain skies, we are reminded the last flight is never truly the last. Because wars may end, but the people they displace carry the story forward. In language, in dreams, in kitchens, in lullabies whispered in a new tongue. So the next time you see that famous photo, look closer, not just at the crowd, but at yourself. Because the line between them and us is thinner than you think. And sometimes, all it takes to fall into history is to be standing on the wrong rooftop when the last flight begins to rise.